This is a Zach Feldman Show replay on ZRadioLive.com.
The Websy Music Station, Z Radio Live. This is the Zach Feldman Show. Joining me over the phone is an author. His name is James Odell, and he has a brand new book called The Road to Hancock County, From Tragedy to Triumph. James, thanks for joining me here on the Zach Feldman Show. How's everything going?
Oh, it's been going great. Real busy.
I bet. Tell us all about this brand new book. You just released it. It's on Amazon, and it's all over the web.
Yeah, it's the title of the book is called The Road to Hancock County, From Tragedy to Triumph, and basically it's a 220-page autobiography that I wrote that took me 2 years to bring to print, and it talks about how I rose to the top of the residential roofing industry in the late 1990s and was making the modern-day equivalent of $64,000 a month. And it tells about my long fall from power, position, and prestige into a life of crime, drug addiction, and alcoholism through a slew of bad decisions.
Tell me about, going down that route. What caused that decline?
Well, the earliest I can remember, and one of the major catalysts that set me up on the path of self-destruction happened, of course, since I'm a psychology student at Liberty University now, happened early on when my father, I know he loved me now because I know that love is a person and love is an action. But at the time, I didn't understand my father never validating that he loved me. It really complicated things in my mind, and I took my first drink when I was 12 years old, and by the time I was 20, man, I was an alcoholic, but I was making a lot of money, and I didn't know how to handle it. So making all that money and having them demons of alcoholism, and they were in me from birth through the biology of addiction, and then having probably the worst cognitive behavior on the planet that you could possibly have as a human being. Matter of fact, one of the scariest neighborhoods I ever lived in was my mind. So that sent me down the path of self-destruction. And, of course, I had two brothers that had went down that path. And, my whole life, I got my security from money, and I got my value from the amount of money I made. And that's a very, very dangerous game when you choose to serve the god of money and have all them demons. And I did it pretty well for years. I made between $220,000 and $350,000 a year, depending on what part of the country that I was in the roofing industry. But the crazy thing is I never really made any money, because if I made $350,000, I spent $351,000. So I made and squandered $2.2 million by the time I was 29 years old, when I graced the doors of the Texas prison system for the first time.
Yeah.
And that's where it all went wrong.
And that's a crazy, obviously it's a crazy number to think of, being, drinking all that number, all that, cash down into your body, in a sense. I mean, more than 6% of adults in the U.S. already deal with alcohol use disorder, and you being one of them, dealing with that. Did you realize at the time you had this disorder? Did you realize, what you were doing?
No, because my problem was that I was young. I made all that money, and I made the people around me millions of dollars. And at one time I was the top guy in a $50 million roofing company, and I answered to the owner. And so pride had a lot to do with it, and you could not tell me anything, from the way I was brought up. And I came from the poorest crime-ridden neighborhood in Arlington, Texas. I was making $20 a day when I stumbled into the sales part of the roofing industry. And once I was crowned with money, there was no stopping me. And it wasn't just the drinking. It was the lifestyle, the lavish lifestyle. I dabbled in cocaine and I spent a lot of time in strip clubs, and I'd be chartering limos to other states for 2 or 3 nights in a row, man.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, I mean, that cost me $2,400 a night just for the limo. Cost 20% for the driver plus $500 more because I'd have to give them my rings and stuff like that. Because they were worth tens and thousands of dollars. Because the strippers would try to rob me and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd have to have him there with me. It was absolutely horrific.
Mm-hmm.
What I had went through.
Yeah.
Before I winded up landing in prison. But I never knew it, and I denied it to the end. And in the end, I would wake up at 41 years old, life spent, charged with 16 felonies in 4 states, reduced to a self-induced torturous hell in a 1-cell radius, withdrawing from 6 shots of heroin a day, man.
Mm-hmm.
And, man, I despaired of life. I lost all hope in that very moment, and I kind of looked up, man, and I said the most honest and sincere prayer that I'd ever said even to this point. And I just asked God. I said, God, just let me die.
Mm.
And
you know what? You realized though after the fact, you realized that you were going on the wrong path at one point. Finally, even if it took 41 years later to realize you were in the wrong path, you fixed it. And now this book is kind of telling us how you fixed it and how you're going back to the community in a sense and trying to be a better person.
Yes, absolutely. And what I ended up doing is I met my agent and mentor, Dan Munger, who he wrote the foreword of the book. Mm-hmm. And when I told him my story, he said, man, the only way to counter your life of selfishness and self-centeredness, which that was the root of all of my troubles. And as addicts, that's the root of everybody's trouble is their self. Is to live a life of self-giving. And so I went to rehab, then I became a lead instructor to rehab, then I started teaching advanced theology courses, then I enrolled in college and going to get a bachelor's degree in psychology right now, going on to get a master's in addictions and recovery to become a licensed alcohol and drug counselor. And I went on to speak at every church, school, and treatment center within 75 miles of the Hancock County jail. Mm-hmm. Testifying to the goodness of God, and if somebody can't accept that, I'm totally cool with that. I just come through the back door to the psychology part and show them that, hey, it ain't the length of your life, it's the quality of life that you possess, and that's the one thing that I searched for in my former life that I could never find that was so elusive, was a quality of life that says, what, the most important things in life aren't things like I believed they was in my former life at all, but it's people.
We're talking with James Hodel again. The book is called The Road to Hancock County, From Tragedy to Triumph. James, now you're a counselor, as you just mentioned before. You're helping those who are dealing with alcoholism and drug addiction, and you're counseling them to try to get better. How much of a relief is that for you to be able to help these people?
Well, it's a duty, honor, and privilege, because I got the gift of sobriety, and I got it one day at a time, and I do believe that a man reaps what he sows, that you get what you give in this lifetime or the next. And so if I want to stay sober, I got to help somebody else get sober. And, coincidentally, it's funny you should say that, because I had tried to beat this sin problem, spiritual malady, this addiction, my whole life, and never could. And the only thing that I didn't try was helping other people get sober. Mm-hmm. And that was the one key factor that sent my life in the right direction. I had made bad decisions.
Yeah. My
whole former life was plagued by them. But I made one right decision: to follow Jesus Christ and to help others. Mm-hmm. And it changed my whole entire life.
And, now you have a kid, obviously, you have a daughter, who is so supportive of you as well. And, you're dealing with, you're telling your story now in this book that you just released. Was that challenging for you to get everything out the way you wanted it to? Or, or kind of be honest with yourself in a sense when you're writing the book?
Yeah, it was because when you write a book, you're sitting in front of a computer for years, and that's basically what I did, and you're trying to go through all the details and give what's relevant and stick to the plot, and let the facts determine the conclusion. And so the hardest thing I think for me was basically as I was writing the book that the good Lord was showing me that, hey, this is where you were and this is where you are now. And you have to tell the truth, and you have to be honest and upfront. You can't add anything to it or take away from it, because a lot of people told me to leave a lot of stuff out of the book. But the thing is I want people to not only know the truth, but there's people that's just like me. And if I can tell the truth and air out my closet in this tell-all book, then somebody else can tell the truth, because the secrets to life is that, we're only as sick as the secrets that we keep.
Mm-hmm. Very true. And, and also, I mean, it's also probably a healing moment for you too, being able to kind of release all your feelings about what has happened in your life.
Yeah, it was very therapeutic for me. And the crazy thing is I'm sitting there writing this book, and my first wife, which I got 2 daughters with, I wrote in a certain part of the book that I'd like to make an amends to her, and maybe one day I'd get the chance. Well, my YouTube channel, somebody seen it back home and sent it to my 2 daughters that I hadn't talked to in 24 years. And they sent it to their mother, and it instantly restored them relationships, just like that, with complete forgiveness. And, that's been the greatest blessing of all. I've sold 5,000 copies of this book around the world. And it gets better and better every day. And that's all fine and dandy. But, getting them key relationships back is the most important thing. That's the greatest blessing of all. And helping others, of course.
For sure. And using your story as a guide and a tool for those who are going through the same situation to try to prevent them from not going in that same path. I mean, that's just a huge blessing as well. Again, the road to Hancock County, from tragedy to triumph. James Odell is on the phone with us. James, where can people pick up the book, and where can people find you online?
If you just Google author James Odell and the road to Hancock County, you'll have so much stuff come up that it's crazy. Or you can go to my website, and it's basically www.theroadtohancockcounty.com. I'm on every major platform around the world: Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Walmart.com, Mighty Ape in New Zealand. I'm in Japan. I'm in the Netherlands. Anywhere you can buy a book on any platform. I'll tell you what, if you can't buy that book there, let me know. Get a hold of me, and I'll send it to you for free.
Awesome. That's great to hear. James, for those who want to know what you're doing now, what are you doing right now? What is your your next big thing you're doing?
Well, I wrote the second book right after I wrote the first one, and it's called Strip, and it basically tells how I literally walked it out, the theology behind it, but it's real watered down so people don't fall asleep during it. And so that's in the United Kingdom with a girl, and it's going to be done in 30 days, and I'll do my part of it, and hopefully it'll be out by May. And by November, I got a prison, basically a prison Bible study for people with problems with addictions, that they could study, that their family members can purchase for them at a very, very low price.
That's awesome.
And send it to them. And if they can't afford it, then I'll just give it away for free. The main thing for me is not to make money on any of these books, but to raise money for the Hancock County Food Pantry, because a child dies every 10 seconds from hunger around the world, and to help the less fortunate, and namely addicts.
That is amazing, and I'm glad you're taking the initiative in a sense to help these counties, and not only with your success so far with this book and with the new one that's coming out. It's going to go to a lot of great causes too, which is awesome, and it's great to see to see the turning point in a sense from that shed of light to now. For those who are dealing with addiction right now, what kind of advice do you have for them?
Well, the first step that is the most crucial is that you have to admit you have a problem, and realize that you're beat by it. I mean, if everybody in your life is constantly telling you that you've got a problem, I mean, they told me they did the same thing with me, and the crazy thing was I denied it to the very end because I didn't drink more than 2 or 3 days a week. I never drank every day. But I was just as bad as the bum that lived under the bridge, and probably worse because at least he still had his freedom.
Wow.
So that's how greatly deceived I was. So I would tell them to admit they have a problem and reach out to another human being that is a professional to get help and lead them back to the right path so they can have a quality of life.
Yeah. Well, that's great, and I'm glad, you're doing the greatest thing that's possible, which is sharing your story and helping others with it, and that is just awesome to hear, and it's such a great thing, and I hope people pick up the book for those who are also dealing with the same issues at this moment to try to fix themselves, and try to make their lives a little bit better. Again, the book is called The Road to Hancock County: From Tragedy to Triumph. Again, my guest has been James Odell. James, thank you so much for coming on the Zach Feldman Show, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
The Webs and Music Station, Z Radio Live, back with more Zach Feldman Show after this.
Want to hear more? Listen to the Zach Feldman Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ZRadioLive.com.